The Senate will now come to order. My apologies for starting 3 minutes late for the first time all term. Excuse me. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be read by Chief of Staff Kohler, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
The clerk will call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect.
Lauren Anderson, William Barnes, Timothy Barr, Amanda Blanton, Bella Brash, Natalia Beyer, William Costello, Emma Cumby, Tate Thew, Amelia Gay, Caleb Geddens, Kaylee Goodrich, Aiden Gruner, Zoe Hopkins, Daniel Huang, Muhammad Iftikhar, Anita John, Lakika Cassetti, Camden Kay, Tori Kerner, Mia LaPenta, Donnie Lapsley, Jeffrey Lyons, Jackson Matthews, Isabel Miller, Kenzie Mozo, Bryson Peterson, Stone Pillsbury, Ainsley Reed, Soraya Ramali, Rodrigo Rojas, Taylor Silkert, Amaya Sowell, William Wenzel, Lawson Windsor, Marion Winters.
With the quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of October 2nd, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Beyer, you are recognized to give a report on the Rules Committee.
Ooh, did we get a new mic? Interesting. Happy Wednesday, everybody. So, surprisingly, the Rules Committee actually met today at 4:30 in the LSC, which is different from our usual Sunday at 5:30 meeting time. But we did review 7 pieces of legislation, all 7 of which were found unanimously favorable. However, 6 of them did have 1 abstention each. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Speaker Tempore, do you have anything about delegation chairpersons?
Oh, yes. If you are a delegation chairperson and you have not previously communicated that you cannot attend today's meeting, please just be sure to stay after Senate so that we can just discuss some of your responsibilities. Thank you.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Anderson, you are recognized.
Hey guys, so academics met at 7 p.m. on Monday, and I have a couple updates. After this meeting, I met with our FROCO liaison, Jacob Booten, who was unable to attend our meeting because it's at the same time as FROCO. We talked about doing a lot of joint initiatives, and our committee will be meeting with him and their whole committee after FROCO next week to discuss more joint initiatives. So yay, that's exciting. In other updates, the academic committee is co-sponsoring a piece of legislation Senator Goodrich wrote, which will be hitting the floor today regarding schedule planners. Also so exciting. And then Senator Hopkins also has a piece of legislation regarding mentor-mentee and pre-professional resources hitting the floor today as well. And then several other initiatives specifically regarding study spots will also be hitting the floor next week, which is so exciting. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Finance Committee met at the usual time on 3:30 on Fridays. We found the bill, SBL 11619, unfavorable. We found that the language was kind of hard to understand for the orgs, and also it removed a lot of the flexibility that the ad hoc committee worked so hard to gain in their term and their research. So we found that unfavorable. We'll also be untabling the bill that we talked about at the beginning of the term to change the dialogue limit. And we changed that number. We're making an amendment to change it to a $3,000 cap, and Jack has put together some data, so we'll present that later. And yeah, with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. If you're interested in finding that bill, it's in the public information folder under, I believe, introduced legislation. There's like a folder that says tabled. We will now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairman Gruner, you are recognized.
Hey guys, it was great to see some of y'all on Sunday at the walk. Health and Safety met on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Special thank you to FROCO member or liaison Audrey for coming. We got to speak with her a little bit about what health and safety for them is doing and the things that they've been working on. We're also finishing up some of our details for the Zip Safe Carolina. We just created the sign up and some committee members have been signing up. That and the domestic violence tabling setup are both going to go out to the public in a second. We're also looking into filling out an SCDOT form and meeting with Dr. Marie Ross Alexander, which will be with Senator John. There will be a piece of legislation this evening from Goodrich and I that will be hitting the floor this evening. And lastly, shout out to Ellie Tanner, who's been working a lot with the Health and Safety Committee, helping us to set up these tabling events. She helped set up all 5 of the tabling things we had this month, so huge shout out to her. I would really recommend going to her for any initiatives. She was a huge help with that, so please definitely reach out to her if y'all need anything. Thank you. Oh, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Chairwoman Cassetti, you are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. So Inclusion and Equity meets on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and we've been discussing some of the initiatives that we have going on, and we've been looking into planning them, and we'll have more updates coming on that. And then we also had a member from Freshman Council join our meeting, Iris Sanders, and we had a really fun time talking to her, and she shared some of the initiatives that Freshman Council has planned so far in terms of inclusion and equity. But yeah, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Kay, you are recognized.
All right, Judiciary met. Ooh, this is loud. Judiciary met this last Friday to discuss a bill, SBL 11619, bill to amend Chapter 3. It was found unanimously unfavorable by the committee members, and I'll go through a little bit of the reasonings for that. Primarily, we wanted to ensure that this was known, that there were pieces inside of this bill that we thought would be valuable, and if were severed and written as a separate piece of legislation, could absolutely provide value to the codes. Our primary 2 reasons as to why they were denied was the language. There has been very much an intent to make Chapter 4 and Chapter 3 simpler. These are the 2 chapters that are handed out generally to the public, and so the more complicated the language inside of those chapters are, the more likely there are to be mistakes. For this one, it would be in allocations, and for Chapter 4, it would be elections. So making these 2 chapters as simple as we can is incredibly important, and I think there is the addition of language that could confuse certain individuals. The second primary reason is a funding prohibition. As it stands right now, if an organization violates the student body codes, the university policy, state, local, or federal law, we have the option to deny them funding. Under this bill, it would make that mandatory if they violated any of these. Now, if they violated state, local, federal law, or university policy, generally it has been the policy of student government to deny them regardless. My particular issue is the fact that the student government codes consist inside of that list. And I'll give you an example. Before the Chapter 3 rework, you were not allowed to have polystyrene products, which are styrofoam, for those who don't know. I didn't know that when I had to read it. And so obviously, if we have something where you are not allowed, let's say a hypothetical, you're not allowed to have styrofoam products or request styrofoam products, and that ends up happening under this bill, they would have to be denied for the rest of the year. I think it's a little bit silly to deny people over styrofoam products. So our general reasoning was the funding prohibition could be used in a very malicious way, or just as a general note, could be probably misused. And because there's no form of recourse, we can't go and reset that. An organization could potentially lose an entire year's worth of funding for a very simple error or mistake on their or our part. And those are the two fundamental reasons why this bill was considered unanimously unfavorable. I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Would you like to speak on ad hoc at this time as well?
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys. Different matter. Ad hoc is going to start to be meeting on Mondays. A lot of people couldn't make the Sundays time. And by the end of this week, I will have Chapter 4 rewritten. I will be sending it out to all of the committee members for y'all to look over. We're hoping to get that in very soon. And then over the spring break, I'll get Chapter 6 and Chapter 1 rewritten. I'll hand that out to the committees just so we can get some of these edits done and get some of this legislation on the floor for after the break. I'll yield if any questions about that.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Chairman Barnes.
It depends on the chapter. Like for the Chapter 4 remake, a large portion of what is edited in Chapter 4 is going to be as one solid bill, but there will be pieces like I'm going to remove the portions where the judiciary are active inside of Chapter 4 and move that to the actual judiciary's branch. Their duties and responsibilities should be under where their duties and responsibilities are supposed to be under. So that will serve as a separate bill because it would be kind of weird to have effectively multiple objectives inside of a single bill. So for Chapter 4 particularly, it's going to have one to edit Chapter 4, and if I move anything over to other parts, those will act as separate entities. Yeah.
Also to clarify, I'm not sure if I ever did this, attendance at special committees do not play into your attendance count when it comes to committees and Senate. So like if you're in it and you feel like you keep having things come up, you won't be penalized for that. So I would encourage y'all to join. Are there any other questions? Chairman Barnes?
Ooh. I was thinking 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, somewhere between those hours. That's generally after work hours and school times. So I think a lot of people would be able to participate inside of that. Obviously, I'm amenable. I'm pretty much good after 3 o'clock. So I can go to the LSC, and if we want it to just be a rolling basis where people come by, it doesn't have to be a set time just to work on some of the stuff that we're doing. I don't necessarily think it has to be a set time if we don't want it to be. If everyone just is able to come at different hours and assist, that would definitely be beneficial.
Chairwoman LaPinta.
Oh. Okay. Do any of them occur before 2 o'clock then? Okay, I'll get back to that. I'll send out a message. Yeah. Well, we'll look at that. I'll have more information when I kind of contact some of the people and see what people are able to meet.
Are there any other questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairman Pillsbury, you are recognized.
Good afternoon, guys. Powers did meet this past week to interview candidate Dor Zanowski. He was found favorable, so in the next Senate session, he will be sworn in. And we will be having a few more Senate interviews over the next couple of weeks. To the people on Powers, there is an availability form for a weekly Powers meeting. Please fill that out as soon as you can. And with that, I yield the rest of my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. The chairman has asked about that availability form a few times, so if you're in Powers, just get around to that, or else I'll text y'all individually, and then it will definitely get filled out. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairman Barnes, you are recognized.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Student Life met Monday at 5 in the LSC per usual. We had a pretty standard meeting and continued working on some of our individual and committee-wide initiatives, along with hearing from some of the Student Life freshman council members. Outside of the committee, I have 3 pieces of legislation hitting the floor tonight, all pretty simple, but I'll go more in depth with those later. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman LaPinta, you are recognized.
Oh my gosh, where'd my thing go? Oh shoot. Oh well. Hey guys. So we didn't meet this week. I kind of just made it optional, just because most of the people on my committee are just kind of waiting on things. Like they're waiting to be, responses on things and stuff. But I did have Senator Lyons, Senator Windsor, and Senator Iftikhar come to me with a couple new ideas. Senator Windsor had the idea of, it was sustainable style. Is that right? Okay. Where there'd kind of be a collab event between the thrift market that kind of comes intermittently, and then Carolina Closet. So I thought that was a really good idea, and he's done a lot of research on that. And then Senator Lyons had an idea to potentially look into installing more battery disposal, the used battery disposal, I don't know what they're called, the little bin things that are sometimes inside the dorms, in all of the dorms. And I've got some contacts within housing, so that's a pretty easy, figure out where the bins are, where they want to be installed. And that's pretty much it. With that, I yield the questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Freshman Council. Are there any representatives from the Freshman Council present? Y'all can recognize. And then when y'all get down here, if you just tell us your names and then your hometown.
My name is Peyton Tumblin, and I'm from Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Hi, I'm Abigail Mathias, and I'm from Bel Air, Maryland.
Just to go over what we did this week, we met on Monday. Thank you to all of you that came out to our little mixer that we had that started at 6. It was really fun getting to know some of you. We're doing a big little program, so that's what that was for. And it was a really good time, and then we started our meeting at 6:30.
At our meeting, we had a presentation from sustainability, and then we worked on developing our LinkedIn profiles and our resumes. And with that, I yield to questions.
The representatives yield their time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Can y'all give them a round of applause? Good job, y'all. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you are recognized.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank the Russell House. Hard work. This is a great microphone. The AV team really brings it every week. Past that, we have a streak to restart this week. Nothing to report. If there's any questions lingering from last week, people were pouring themselves through those codes and constitutions and now have directed questions. Be happy to answer them. But with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chief Justice yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Speaker Pro Tem Borbayer. Oh, there's been a motion to appoint Chairman Barnes as Speaker Pro Tempore Byers proxy. Approved.
I was really excited. Crushed. So close.
Are there any other questions for the Chief Justice? Is there one question? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank y'all.
We will now hear a report from the Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton. Chief of Staff Kohler, you are recognized.
All right, hey y'all, just a few reminders for you. Again, delegation chairs stay after today. Y'all will be having a meeting. I think Natalia mentioned that. Also, we're gonna start doing some food for thought info. There's gonna be some stuff going on about that. If you haven't done food for thought before, it's literally just any student government representatives meeting with some of their constituents, and it's literally you get to give them free food in exchange for their thoughts on different programs or different things that you want to implement, they want to see implemented. Nothing's set on that yet, but look for some information about that next week. Oh, also next week, no Senate, no committee meetings. It's fall break, so enjoy your break. I think we all need it. Again, submit legislation. Be sure to ask your committee chairpersons for help. They are really great. They're in that position for a reason. They will help you with anything you need, any research, anything like that. Again, Ellie Tanner is amazing. She's been doing so much with everyone. She will help you. Anyone on staff, we're happy to help you research a bill or get you some contacts. If you know anyone in the HRSM school, please send them our way. We don't have anyone in that delegation currently, and we'd love to fill that. And then also expect FROCO proxies next session, which is really exciting, which will be the 23rd, I believe, since there's no session next week. I yield my time to questions.
The Chief of Staff yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'm also taking suggestions on what food to use for food for thought. I was thinking Krispy Kreme, but I'm open. So if anybody feels strongly, let me know. We will now hear a report from the Student Body Vice President. Vice President Courtney Tax, you are recognized.
Hey everyone. Ooh, this is a good mic. Okay, so I have some just updates from last week and some results. So from our Coffee and Conversations event that we had with Seven Brew and the Center of Health and Wellbeing, we actually had 218 responses on our QR form, and they were kind of shocking. We had 108 participants say they didn't know about counseling and psychiatry appointments until the event. 74 participants said they wanted to learn how to manage anxiety. 164 participants would enjoy interactive mental health events, and 77 would enjoy a student-led mental health conference. So I'd love to partner with Senate to do some more targeted programming for these specific results that we got. But overall, very good responses. I'm really glad. And then for Walkathon, thank you to everybody who came out. You genuinely have no idea how much it means to me. It was so nice seeing the little Senate group that came. Y'all played cornhole. It was so fun. But at the end, our stats, we had 449 participants, and we raised $26,560 for the JED Foundation, which goes to suicide prevention. So again, just a huge thank you to everybody that came out to that event. Next week, we have a screening actually in here at the Russell House Theater. It'll be for the film Undivide Us. It's a partnership with the College of Arts and Sciences and the Heterodox Academy. It's a 45-minute film followed by a student panel. There will be pizza provided, so there will be food and drinks. And I'm actually reaching out to the J School and Political Science departments to see if any professors would like to count this as extra credit. So far, we actually have a professor that is. So I will keep y'all in the loop to see who else is. And then my last thing, we do have a newsletter, and it's ready to go. Everything's ready. We're ready to send it, but we can't send it if we don't have anybody submitting stuff in. So if you do have an event coming up or something you would like to know, let the whole group know of, please let your press secretary know, or you guys can fill out the form as well. It's on Garnet Gate, but please let your press sec know. The actual newsletter itself will be sent out on Sundays, but the form is due Fridays at 11:59. Yes. And again, thank you for the FROCO legislation. We're really excited to get them partnering with you guys more. But so far, I've heard only good things from my Senate liaisons. They've had great experiences with you guys, so thank you for being so welcoming to them. And yeah, with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Student Body Vice President yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body President. President Patton Byers, you are recognized.
Cool, thank you. So I spoke earlier today to Faculty Senate on excused absences for well-being or mental health. We've talked about this periodically throughout since about late March when we were all inaugurated into our positions. So this is obviously something that's going to be coming forward in the next couple weeks. So I would say could be 2 Mondays from now when we start to see this form being active on the Office of Student Advocacy, when you could start requesting for an excused absence for well-being. So that's an amazing thing that we've been continuously working on, and this has been something we've advocated for years on. So to see it get to the finish line is pretty awesome. Moved on to athletics. Several members of my cabinet are talking to athletics on several issues, and they should be reaching out to y'all shortly. Some people that we've already been in contact, I've been in contact with, and my DepSec of athletics, Pearson Dillon, will be in contact with y'all very shortly as well. But some of the things that Pearson is meeting with athletics members on is student ticketing and appeals process. So student ticketing and specifically appeals, that process used to be under student affairs for pretty much the longest time. It's now under just athletics. So I think there's a reason that to be looked into, and certainly though we've heard more complaints about it than, in my opinion, than I've ever heard. There's something to be said that maybe it needs to go back to student affairs, and as if because they could handled it clearly better the first time. So we're looking into different things on that, and the basketball student section, and making sure that we can try to find that and to be the best possible student section we can make that happen in. We're also looking at ways we can get coaches more involved as well on our campus. A perfect example of this is Auburn basketball. Their coach, Bruce Pearl, does a great job at getting involved in the community, and we're looking at models of how he does it and how really Auburn athletics does it in general. And so we're talking about some of those things to them, and they should be in contact with y'all shortly. Stuff the Bus was last Friday and last Saturday at the football game as well, but we ran the one specifically on last Friday. It was a great success. Thank you all for who donated to Dress Down last Wednesday, and for people who donated before and after that, for that matter. We filled 4 of the buses that y'all saw on Green Street, 2 of the moving trucks. The moving trucks are just like massive. But so 2 of those moving trucks, one went to Edgefield County, one went to USC Union, and some of the texts we got from the members of the community who were affected positively from this was absolutely amazing. The governor heard about it and said, actually literally said thank you to the USC student government for this. So that was really, really, really cool to see that we affected the community, but also people saw that, and so that was really great. We're working with academic leaders at the university. I think we talked about this last week on bringing back schedule planner. We're still looking at that and seeing if we can make that happen, and I appreciate and applaud everyone and their efforts for the recommendation. Or resolution? Recommendation on bringing schedule planner back. I echo that sentiment. We're also looking at potential exam time reform, which would mean that shortening that exam time period. Instead of 2.5 hours, it'd be 2 hours. We'll see if that happens. Right now, it looks like that's unlikely, but maybe there's a potential for that, and I'll, of course, keep you all in the loop on that. A positive note when it comes to academics is that our HRSM is doing a pilot study of using AI in their advising experience. That's something that we've been talking about pretty consistently throughout the time here, or my time as president, and so I'm excited that HRSM will take that on, and I'm sure they'll hear a lot of good responses from that. Earlier today, I met with our CIO, Bryce Bible, to talk about Wi-Fi on our campus. Some of the positive things we heard. 77 of people who reported on our House the Wi-Fi's campaign, which is a partnership that student government has with IT and infrastructure, so the places that had new Wi-Fi, for example, like Russell House and select few other places on campus, 77% of those students in the new Wi-Fi areas said it was a positive experience of Wi-Fi. That's pretty shocking because usually people who do surveys think about it like course evaluations. You're either going to say it because you mainly hate it or the professor, or you really love it. For Wi-Fi especially, it's really only for the hate, the things that don't work, because why would you fill it out if it's working? So to hear that positive feedback is great. Things that we're going to work on, though, is hopefully more outdoor Wi-Fi, and specifically stadium Wi-Fi is something that I've been particularly interested in on. So we're looking at different ways with that. Stadium Wi-Fi would be a lot more of a athletics partnership, and outdoor Wi-Fi would just be more unilateral from the Office of IT and Infrastructure. And then a look in the future when it comes to IT is, I think we've talked about this in the past, but IT and Infrastructure, Bryce Bible and Jim Walzike, who is the campus rec director, are very, very interested in esports at the University of South Carolina and the opportunity that holds. And there is actually a lot of opportunity for that, surprisingly enough. And so a lot of other universities are looking at it and have already done it. We're a little bit behind on that end, so we are looking at that and seeing the possibility of that. Speaking of campus recreation, I'm gonna talk to Speaker Hamilton about this probably in the next few days. Set the mood. Okay. We'll continue on. Nice. Train of thought. That was interesting. Okay. Campus Recreation Director is coming to our cabinet October 29th to speak on potential renovations of some of their buildings. And he asked that I invite some members of the Student Life Committee to this. So I'll make sure that I communicate with Chairman Barnes on that as well, so you guys can come if you'd like. October 22nd, a week before that, is the safety walk on our campus that we do a partnership every semester with USCPD on. We're partnering with RHA specifically on this one. It's the first time we've partnered with RHA or any other organization with a safety walk, so that will be great, and facilities will be there as well. We're also communicating with Richland and Columbia PD if they can be there as well. And I'm working with Chairman Kay on his committee's work and the ad hoc committee for several different chapters of things that affect the President's branch in positive ways. Nothing controversial, just mainly making things a lot easier for our branch and less broad. So with that, I yield to questions.
Do you want to tell them about the RHA thing next week? You got it emailed to us. You responded.
No, that's not next week. That's in November.
Oh, I misread the invitation. Never mind, y'all.
Yeah.
All right. The esteemed body president yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Chairman Kay.
Yeah, so the few that I've heard of, just on the top of my head, are Charlotte University and Buffalo are some of the bigger ones. I believe Tennessee has it as well. And there's one, I think Akron. Apparently Akron has like a really big team. And Old Dominion, I think. So yeah, I for sure the first two and UTK, and I'm pretty sure about Akron. I think ODU. So it's happening. It's happening in a lot of different places.
Are there any other questions? Vice Chairman Matthews. Do you, just in general? Yes, so the Board of Trustees approved a plan to take out the bookstore of Russell House and from that, move the bookstore out of Russell House and then have that entire square footage be used for more dining space. And the president talked about that earlier today as well. So that was voted on the day of the hurricane, so a little bit under 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so yes, that is an active thing that is happening right now. That's the first major renovation to Russell House in years, to say the least. So that's awesome. It's something I've personally been advocating for months. So, and it's also big because a lot of people aren't going to the bookstore to buy books. They're mainly going there for store to buy miscellaneous merchandise, which is still good, but we can put that in a place that's not as essential of a place that we can put other things that are more in need of. No, of course. Thank you. That's a good question. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Yeah.
We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
Application of Landon Pollock and Nicholas Gavin Arriaga to be seated in the 116th Student Senate.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read. Seeing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor at this time? Senator Gay. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Winter as Senator Gay's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Gay. Granted. Senator Silkert. There's been a motion to remove Senator Silkert from the Finance Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Windsor. There's been a motion to remove Senator Windsor from the Health and Safety Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Reed. There's been a motion to remove Senator Reed from the Sustainability Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Blanton. There's been a motion to remove Senator Blanton from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Silkert. There's been a motion to add Senator Silkert to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Chairman Barnes. There's been a motion to add Chairman Barnes to the ad hoc committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Lapsley. There's been a motion to add Senator Lapsley to the ad hoc committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Goodrich. There's been a motion to add Senator Goodrich to the Judiciary Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Hopkins. There's been a motion to add Senator Hopkins to the ad hoc committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Chairman Wenzel. There's been a motion to untable the bill titled "A Bill to Increase the Operation Capacity of the Finance Committee." Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is removed from the table and placed on the second reading contested calendar. Chairman Wenzel. Which amendment are you referring to? There's been a motion to amend SBL 11627 with Amendment 1. Does the sponsor find this friendly or unfriendly? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? If you're looking to remove your name from a bill, now would be the time to do that. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Senator Lapsley, yeah. Indefinitely? All right. There's been a motion to table SBL 11619 indefinitely. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is now tabled. All right. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense of this motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. All right. We are now on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will read.
SBL 11620, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a bill to amend the codes pertaining to inauguration.
Chairman Barnes, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
So for this bill, it's pretty simple. All it's adding is 2 different lines, basically saying that after the first 4 weeks of inauguration, you have 1 more week, or excuse me, I said that backwards. The official inauguration ceremony can't take place until 4 weeks after the election. So then when we all get sworn in, presumably say someone doesn't, that in the clause B is giving you 1 extra week to get sworn in. And if you don't get sworn in 5 weeks after the election period, you'll lose your spot within student government, whether you're a senator, cabinet, things like that. So with that, I yield my time to questions.
To clarify, the only elected positions in student government are senators and then the executive members.
Yes.
So elected positions.
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions for the chairman? Vice Chairman Matthews. We actually had an attorney general inquiry about this last semester. If you are elected and you don't get sworn in, you essentially indefinitely keep the spot, and that spot would have to stay empty. And even if there were vacant seat senators out the door, we couldn't fill that spot. So
to kind of piggyback off that, the reason that I wrote this is because a similar incident happened at the beginning of this term where a senator came in, wasn't sworn in, really didn't show up to Senate committee meetings, things like that. So I kind of thought it was necessary to make sure that if you're elected, you assume office, therefore you're required to maintain those requirements in office.
Any other questions for the chairman? Seeing none, seeing no more questions, the legislation is now referred to the Judiciary Committee. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will read.
SBL 11621, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a bill to update the obligations of a senator.
Chairman Barnes, you are once again recognized.
All right, so with this one, all it's doing is mandating 2 different things attendance-wise for us. First being student senate orientation. Basically, that's going to occur once a semester, and that's up to the discretion of the speaker. And in that session, the speaker will go over things that we should know, whether that's how to write legislation, important things going on in Senate, things like that. So once a semester, we'll just have to meet all together and get a student Senate training. And then the second part is talking about, mandating student government-wide. So the once a month thing that we all do in student government wasn't in the codes, meaning we didn't necessarily have to go, even if the speaker mandated it. But with this clause, it's basically saying it is our job as a senator to now go once a month. There was another thing I added to the fourth one, which basically just kind of clarifies something that was a little iffy at first. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. With that, yield my time to questions.
Chairman Kay.
So SGY is a time where all the branches of student government come together and all the officers will give updates, whether that's Speaker Hamilton, the treasurer, vice president, or a president. They just give updates about what their branches are doing and things to look forward to in the coming month.
Senator Gettins.
It already is monthly?
In the proposed legislation, it just clarifies that SGY would be an event that is agreed upon to be called SGY by all 4 executive board members. Technically, we don't run it monthly. We try to, but it's not a fixed schedule. Are there any other questions? Senator Lapsley?
So the way I have it written in the bill, it states that attending, participating, and actively contributing in all mandatory student government-wide events approved by the executive board. So all 4 student government officers will have to agree on that, and they have to communicate that to the rest of student government 2 weeks prior to that event. I didn't include anything about how often those events can occur. It's just based up to the discretion of the 4 officers and getting that out to us at least 2 weeks before the event takes place.
The purpose of that is every other branch, the executive member can create an attendance policy and what is and isn't mandatory to their discretion, versus in Senate, y'all's rules are governed by the codes. So to make this a mandatory event for senators in the future, it has to be a codes change. Senator Lapsley. Yes. Chairman Kay.
It does. So if you missed one of those student government-wide deemed events, that goes to one of your 3 absences for your normal Senate sessions that are every Wednesday.
Are there any other questions for the chairman? Chairwoman LaPinta.
I wouldn't think so, because I think these events, there's a clause in here that states if you have an excused absence, you don't have to come and you don't have to get a proxy. So basically, like, with the event, if you can't go, you submit an excuse to the speaker's office, and if it's deemed acceptable, you don't have to go. No proxy, just like any other event, not necessarily like Senate session where we have to get a proxy.
I believe the attendance policy is also outlined in the bill itself. It should be in there. At least that's what I saw during rules.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Are there any other questions? Senator Gettins.
I agree that like every week, every Wednesday, we are briefed on that, but I think coming together as student government's really important so that we have the chance to talk to members, whether that's in the vice president's branch, such as freshman council, or the president's branch and their cabinet. So being able to talk to different people that's just not necessarily exec. So you're getting the big picture of what everyone in student government's kind of doing. And it's also, I think, one of our roles in student government as senators to take part in these events.
We've been doing SGY for about 2 years, and we've only had one so far this school year just because it's been busy, but that is the purpose, is like if you're in health and safety, like you would be talking with people that are DepSecs for health and safety in cabinet and people in vice president's branch who are interested in programming about that. Are there any other questions? Chairwoman Kizzetti? Yeah, granted. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Judiciary Committee. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11622, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a recommendation to enhance university housing web pages with centralized and accessible information for all students.
Chairman Barnes, you are once again recognized.
So this is a recommendation that both the Student Disability Resource Center and the Housing Office requested me to make. I've been meeting with them all semester just trying to find ways that we can incorporate accessibility making sure students who need ADA compliant rooms get those rooms, and then making information more accessible on websites, graphics, things like that. And so this is kind of phase one of some of the things that we want to do together. And so basically, I know it's a lot of words at the top in the title, but it's just asking them under each housing unit on the housing website to have an accessibility tab that basically states what type of disability that housing unit accommodates for. And then it's just kind of asking that the webpage becomes a little more friendly for students with any type of disability. Looking kind of ahead, we're going to try and do pictures of ADA compliant rooms on websites. That's not really present along with the dimensions, but that's in the future. So this is kind of starting what we want to do. They asked me to write this legislation, so if there's any questions about it, feel free to ask. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, the legislation is now referred to the Student Life and Health and Safety Committees. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11623, introduced by the Finance Committee, a recommendation to permit the Finance Committee to allocate funds.
Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hello, everyone. Finance Committee reviewed $38,763.75 this week, and we allocated $38,730.77 this week. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Chairman Barnes.
I don't know the exact number, so I can get that back to you, but I believe we're at about 53% of the fall allocation thus far.
We have used,
After
adding this, it's going to be roughly 90K, give or take a few thousand. Chairman Barnes.
Yes, it depends on when the event is, as far as which pot it pulls from.
Are there any other questions or motions on the floor? Chairman Pillsbury.
Most of it was marketing material. They're kind of a newer organization here on campus, so they want to get their name out here. They want to get different stuff for that, and also they're having a tabling event, so that's the main thing they're trying to market towards. So they're going to be handing out candy at that and whatnot.
Are there any other questions on the floor at this time? Chairwoman LaPinta. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11623 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11624, introduced by Senator Goodrich and Chairman Gruner, a recommendation to integrate University 101 modules addressing safety measures in event of a school shooting or mass threat.
Senators Goodrich and Gruner, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Bear with me, I'm very new to this. The idea is that the university would create modules based off of what USCPD has already published online, as well as what they sent out in the email about 2-ish weeks ago, and hopefully would also include quick emergency tips. It would be in a module version that's easy for freshmen to consume and take quizzes on, just like Alcohol EDU. If you think back to your freshman year, quick modules, like 30 minutes. This would be given to freshmen to take in their U101 class and would not affect like their letter grade or anything like that. I have spoken to Michelle Profit, who is employed by USCPD, and she's their outreach coordinator. They were very excited about the idea of modules, and she's also going to be at the safety walk, so if you see her, say hi. She's very nice and very excited to work with us. The reason I'm asking them to be put into modules, even though they are available on the website, is to make sure that the information is actually like read and not just, it's out there, but nobody's going to consume it, and produced in a very easy way for students to learn. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
Do you have anything to add, Senator Gruner?
Oh, sorry.
Also, something that we have been kind of receiving more information on, there are some potential modules that are already in place with U101. It's just that they're not mandated. And so in addition to adding these new resources to that pool, we'll also be mandating those as well for all U101 classes. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senators yield their time to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Chairman Barnes.
I didn't do that, so I'm sorry. I didn't know that. So it sounds like perhaps they're not mandated.
Chairman Barnes.
Unless they are? Okay, yeah, so this bill is saying, or this recommendation is saying that they be mandated.
Chairman Kay. There's been a motion to adopt SBL 11624 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Congratulations to Senator Goodrich. That's her first piece.
Thank you, guys.
And now she's actually going to stand up there. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11625, introduced by Senator Goodrich and the Academics Committee, a recommendation to bring back Schedule Planner or an equivalent for the 2025 registration.
Senators Goodrich and Anderson, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
So I believe the entire committee is on it, correct? Or no?
Past precedent is just the chairperson will speak on behalf of the whole committee.
Sorry, got a little confused. After speaking with many students and academic advisors, they are absolutely devastated by Schedule Planner being lost. I've heard different explanations from staff on why it is gone, and I don't have a concrete answer, and I don't want to speculate because that's not fair to the university. But my goal with this legislation is to put one more voice in the list of people speaking out to make sure that they know the whole of student body is looking for it to come back, or at least an equivalent. Before I yield my time to questions, I would like to thank Senator Gruner and Barnes for helping me write my legislation, as I am very new to this and didn't know how to do that. I would also like to thank the academic committee for supporting me on this. I really appreciate that. You guys have been so nice. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The senators yield their time to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Vice Chairman Matthews. There's been a motion to adopt SBL 11625 by unanimous consent.
Thank you, guys.
Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11626, introduced by Senator Hopkins, a recommendation to offer greater peer mentoring opportunities to students.
Senator Hopkins, you are recognized to speak.
Hi, team. Okay, I'm back. So basically what this does is that Academics Committee was kind of made aware of the fact that students want the opportunity to take part in peer mentorship, and they didn't really know what exactly is being offered by the university. So I did a little deep dive, found out how different schools do it, especially in the SEC, and how we already do it. And what I kind of found out is that our program right now, although we do have one, it's not very fleshed out, and I just feel like it could be because it's not advertised. It's only on the academics advisory website. It's basically just you submit your name and say, hey, I'm interested, and then you get paired with like whoever else is like signed up to become a mentor. So it's not very like particular, it's not very advertised, but I did look into it, and Darla actually has its own website called More Connect that I personally use, and it's where as a student you can get connected with alumni or other students, and you get kind of more authority in choosing who you want as your mentor or who you want as your mentee. It's more specialized, and it's personally been helpful to me. So based on that website being utilized by the university and like
it being more fleshed out and people being able to go there by their own volition, I feel like the university has the means to create a better system of at least advertising their peer mentorship opportunities, if not bettering it completely. So this is more just my call to action, because it's clearly something that matters to students because it's been brought to our attention in the academics committee. So I think there's a lot of research that proves that it's important and very useful, and it's about time that in addition to Darla having its system, the rest of the school kind of gets its own opportunity to thrive. I yield the rest of my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Kay? There's been a motion to adopt SBL 116, goodness, I don't have my normal packet, 26 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. All right. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read. Seeing none, that completes the call of new legislation. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read. Seeing none, that completes the call of the contested legislation. Before we begin the contested reading calendar, is there a motion for a brief recess just to rectify some things in our files? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. I was watching an edit about that with Princess Diana and the royal family, and it was like,
My favorite, you know my favorite to that song.
no. No, because I know it's gonna destroy me. Yeah, I know, but I would die. Do you have a copy of it? I'll take the hard copy. Senate will now come to order. No, it's fine. We'll wait. We're missing one person. I guess we'll wait. We'll keep going and wait for him to get back. All right. We are now on the call of the contested legislation. The clerk will read.
SBL 11627, introduced by the Finance Committee, a bill to increase the operating capacity of the Finance Committee.
Chairman Wenzel and Vice Chairman Matthews, you are recognized to speak on this legislation. And this has now been updated in the public information folder. Do you want that slideshow now?
Yeah, please. So while they're pulling it up, so for those who aren't in the Finance Committee, the current way that it works is if a request comes in that's over $1,000, we're required to have them come in for a dialogue, which we discuss with them the means of their event and some details of it. Sometimes that kind of feels burdening and it's kind of an over process, and we get a lot of requests in, so there's a ton of time we have to spend during the committee going through this. So Jack's done some data. I'll let him take the floor on this one.
Yeah.
And talk about kind of what he's found.
Hey, so I'd like to preface this by reminding you guys that he's an engineering major, finance major, and neither of us are good at graphic design. So please keep in mind when looking at our presentation here.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide, please. All right, so again, the current way that it works is that if you request over $1,000, you have to come in for a dialogue. Last year was $500, and that was way too low for the size of the requests that were coming in. Now it's 1,000 after the last year's ad hoc reform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we still think that is too low. That is too low because we are still a little overwhelmed by the dialogues, which again sometimes feel like a burden and sometimes are not necessary. So we suggest raising that number to 3,000. Next slide. So I don't know if any business majors in here, you guys will know how to use R. It's some data statistical analysis tool that they teach us how to use in the business school. And that is how I created these things. Ignore all the numbers on the bottom x-axis. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of them. So just ignore that. I actually have no idea what those mean. But these are frequency distributions for the data for 2020 to 2023. The middle one is just for last fall. Now remember, last fall we ran out of funds pretty much. I think it was at the end of the term of the semester, right? Yeah. So that's one semester's worth of data, and then the one on the very right is this fall thus far. Obviously, it's incomplete because we still have another month and a half left of semester, something like that, 2 months. I don't know. And so each one of those bars, I broke this up into intervals of $250. So each one of those bars represents the number of requests that were within that range. So the first bar, on the first graph, for between 2020 and 2023, there were 70 requests that were $1 to $250. And then between $251 and $500, there were like 50. So on and so forth. Same thing, I used the same codes for fall of 2023 and then this fall. And so this is really just to show you guys like what this looks like. And so you can kind of imagine right now everything up to the fourth bar with all of these, that's everything that we don't look at. Everything after that is stuff that are requests that people have to come in and talk to us about. Next slide, please. And so then I looked at what percentages of the, then I looked at how many requests each year we would have gotten under different thresholds, if that makes sense. And so under the old threshold of $500, last year we caught 49% of requests. So 49%, and this is like by numbers. So I think there was like about 100 requests last year, about 51 of those, 49 of those, yeah. 49 of those came in for a request. So that's what that means. And then those 49 requests represented 93% of the budget. If the $1,000 threshold had been in place last year, that number would have been closer to 37% of requests, representing 89% of the budget. Last year, if we had had a $3,000 threshold, we would have captured 21% of the requests, and then what's that? 63% of the total budget. Last year's data and this year's data looks very similar. The average, what was it? The average size of the requests last year was $2,100. This year so far it's closer to $1,350, leaving out some of the bigger outliers. Like we had that $35,000 request last week. I left that out because that's ridiculous. And
Ridiculously larger. Ridiculously.
ridiculously
Yeah.
larger. I'm not commenting on that. It's statistically it was ridiculous. Let's put it that way. It was a massive outlier and was not helpful for this data. And so that's what that's looking like. So if we were to implement this $3,000 threshold, we'd be catching about 2/3 of the funds in our meetings, and about 1/5 of the requests would come in and see us. Now, I also like to clarify that just because we're raising this threshold doesn't mean that we can't ask people to come in for a dialogue request at any point. We still have that right. And we've done that multiple times this year for requests as small as $150. We're not putting forward this bill because we're lazy. We're doing it because for the sake of efficiency.
I'd also like to add that within this bill, there's a clarification that says anyone in the Finance Committee can ask someone to come in for a dialogue. So I just, and the way I'd see it and the way it's written, it's like anyone can say, hey, this org needs to come in the dialogue, any member, and that automatically constitutes them to come in. So yeah, with that, we yield our time to questions.
The senators yield their time to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Senator Rojas.
Sure, yeah. So typically we ask, two questions are standard across the board. We ask them to tell us a little bit about their org and a little bit what the request is about, just so that we can get the understanding. And then at the end, we ask them if they have any questions. And then from there, the in-between is anything that we find that's kind of an issue with the request or any concerns that we have. So typically it's, if we don't really find anything blatantly obvious, we might ask them like clarifying questions, like are there, like code clarifying questions, like are there rooms gender separated? Or is this event open to all people? Sometimes it's like as simple as like three question dialogue.
Are there any other questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a period of debate on this bill. Does anyone senator wish to speak on this bill at this time? Senator Lyons.
Good evening. That is loud. Anyway, I am also a member of the Finance Committee, and I just wanted to express some opposition to this bill. I don't oppose perhaps raising the $1,000 limit, but I think $3,000 is too much for us to compromise on. Because I think with these dialogues, that's a way for us to be accountable to ourselves, that we're doing our due diligence when looking at these requests. And it's also, we're being accountable to the student body, that the university and the students have entrusted us with this money. And so that we're gonna have our due diligence and look at this money very carefully. So they kind of already covered what a dialogue is. So these organizations will come in, they talk to us, we ask them a few questions. They're normally super brief, don't really ever last more than like 3 or 4 minutes. And I think that's one of the reasons, because they're so short, that we should just at least have that check still in place for these requests. So under the new proposition, like organization requesting $2,800, we wouldn't be required to have a dialogue. And like personally, that's a lot of money. So I know we would still be able to request a dialogue if we wanted to, but I feel like just to be able to hold ourselves accountable, I feel like we still need to have that like mandated in place, that because it's like $2,800, we still have to have a dialogue, even if on the surface we think that the request looks good. And so just, I wanted to comment on the data for a second. So if we're looking at the $3,000 limit, they were saying that we would only have a dialogue with the top 21% of requests. And although that's probably going to shorten our meetings and all, I think it kind of takes away the goal of what we're doing, because, sorry, I'm losing my words here. But we need to take into consideration the amount of money that we are allocating to these orgs. So although it's like a percentage of the allocations, like, as I said, 2,800, 2,000, 2,500, that's a lot of money. And so I know the logistics of the committee should definitely be taken into consideration, but I think $3,000 is a little too high of a bar to set. I know like our committees tend to last about 2 hours, so the meetings do last a long time, and I understand that we want to shorten them. But I think as elected representatives of the student body that we are called to serve, and even if that takes an extra 30, 40 minutes to our meetings, I feel like that's an obligation that we have to fulfill. So I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Barnes.
I would propose maybe a $1,500 or $1,750 amount.
Chairman Kay.
I would consider it.
Senator Rojas.
I mean, it's more of a personal standing. I just think that is like $3,000 is a lot of money. So like when we're given this duty to allocate this money, and if that money is coming across our table, like I definitely want to give it like the utmost consideration possible. So I guess there wasn't like a specific data set that I looked at to come to that number, but just I feel like it's too high.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Senator Bland.
Are you saying like we would request like? I mean, I guess kind of going off what Chairman Wenzel was saying, like it's only happened like a couple times this semester when we've requested like small dollar like allocations to come in. That was just because we were curious about what they were kind of requesting for, and if there was a potential code violation that was missed.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes, with this new proposition, it would just be one. But I just want to be concerned, like if we're having these couple $1,000 allocations, that we are just having our due diligence, even if these meetings are only like 3 minutes long, we're just asking like 2 questions. I feel like we should still have that check in place to check our powers, that we're not just like pushing through stuff, and we're actually taking in-depth consideration of it.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you, Senator Lyons. Round of applause, that's his first time up there. Continuing on with the period of debate on SBL 11627, do any other senators wish to speak on the bill at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion to the previous question of the passage of SBL 11627? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We are now moving to a call of the previous question. We will now move to a vote on this bill. The question is of the final passage of SBL 11627. This shall be a roll call vote, and the clerk shall call the roll. Just a reminder, if you're proxying, say proxy and then the vote. And make sure to like amplify y'all's voices so we can hear you up here.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Byer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Tate Few. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrick. Aiden Gruner. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Huang. Muhammad Iftikhar. Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mia LaPenta. Donnie Lapsley. Jeffrey Lyons. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Ainsley Reed. Soraya Molly. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Silkert. Amaya Sal. William Winslow. Lawson Windsor. Marian Winters.
By a vote of 27 ayes, 7 nays, and 2 abstentions, SBL 11627 is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of contested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any senators from the floor wishing to make an announcement at this time? Senator Goodrich.
So I'm looking at doing a like donation drive for Final Victory. It's the dog shelter in Columbia. They do give a dog a bone and stuff, and we're gonna set up that donation drive over the next month, and then I'll do a resolution to recognize their efforts to taking care of these dogs. That's pretty much all I have to say.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other announcements on the floor at this time? Seeing none, oh, Senator Bland.
Hi guys, so I know Chairman Gruner has kind of been talking about this over the past several weeks, or kind of like the past month or so, but I have led an initiative with Health and Safety called SIF Safe Carolina, and so basically what this initiative is it's attempting to combat some of the risks that we've had at the university with past issues with roofing. A study that was conducted in 2023 revealed that 22% of participants at USC had been roofied, and 70% knew at least one person who had been roofied. In a partnership with Check Your Drink, which is an organization that worked with other universities on similar initiatives, I was able to secure us 575 pouches containing 5 test strips each. These test strips are going to test for a broad spectrum of drugs used commonly for roofing, including GHB, ketamine, cocaine, and scopolamine. So I was able to secure us a discount of 300%, saving us $3,000. But this event is going to be on Green Street. It's a tabling event. It'll be on October 28th and 29th. And then in addition to these strips, we're also going to be handing out educational materials on safe drinking practices. Chairman Gruner and I met with SAFE, and they gave us some educational materials as well as just some pointers on things that we can educate the student body on, as well as kind of safe ride practices and just a accumulation of information regarding how to be safe when performing these types of social activities. So in addition to that, we're also going to have Dunkin' Donuts hot chocolate and goodies. So that'll be kind of like a fun little eye catcher, and just stop and chat and have some hot cocoa. But we're looking for help tabling. It'll be, like I said, October 28th and 29th, so right around that homecoming and Halloween time. And it'll run from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So signups are going to be going out, I believe, within the next hour or so into the Senate GroupMe. Awesome. Okay, so anybody that could sign up, that would be greatly appreciated. I also wanted to thank Senator Zoe Hopkins and Emma Cumby for working on the website, which is going to have educational materials in the form of a QR code students can scan, and it'll also just show kind of the limitations of these products and just kind of different ideas that we've come up with throughout the semester. So if anybody has, do I give more time to questions or no?
Do you have anything else to share?
No, just sign up to volunteer and looking forward to seeing y'all.
The senator yields your time to questions. Are there any questions? Chairman Kay.
So those are Monday and Tuesday.
This will also be an absence forgiveness event. So if you table, you can get an absence forgiven. Are there any other questions for the senator at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Please wait to pack up because I actually have like a longer announcement today, so sorry about that. Do you have an announcement, Aiden? Chairman Gruner.
So really quickly, I know y'all just saw in the form, I just dropped both sign-up sheets for both of the different events that are going on. I do really quickly want to also bring up the domestic violence tabling event. This will be 3 events that will be happening prior to a paneling event that's currently happening with with Senator Barr's fraternity. During this event, the people stationing at the table are going to be helping to run it. They're going to be gathering information and questions from student body and giving them like a treat and facilitating for any questions. And then those questions will be rolled over into the panel that will be happening on the 25th, which is what's being run by, or 24th? Sorry, the 24th, which is being run by Senator Barr's fraternity. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Chairman Barnes.
Absolutely. I just made the form and I've just made the forms in that template, but please feel free to. With that in mind, I will go ahead and extend the amount if we're going to get more people on there. So I'll add a couple extra slots to it, but we would love to see as many people as possible come out and support.
Are there any other questions for the chairman? Chairman Kay.
It definitely can. I think I've already sent it to the FROCO Health and Safety, but I think the liaison might be trying to extend it to the entire FROCO group, but I haven't followed up with her yet, but I'm going to talk with her later tonight about that.
Are there any other questions for the chairman? All right. Seeing no questions, you're good to go. Are there any other announcements from the floor at this time? All right, time for mine. I will make it as quick as possible. Y'all did an amazing job today, and something that I want to touch on is that there were a bunch of new senators up here who did legislation, who spoke, and they did an amazing job. So round of applause for all of them if that was your first time up there today. We're gonna go over not this whole slideshow, I promise, not the whole slideshow. We're gonna go over really briefly how to write legislation, because it's come to my attention. I think we just need a refresher. That's totally fine. But if y'all saw from the work up here today, like I promise you, it is not scary. I don't want to say it's not hard because you want to make sure that you're putting in hard work to it, but it's really not difficult to complete. Like, if it is something that you're passionate about, I promise you, it becomes really easy. And I remember when I was a senator, like, I would write one piece, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm on a roll. And then I would write, like, 4 more afterwards. So, like, once you get started in the flow of it, it will go a lot better. So, So just to clarify, we talked about this during Senate training, but with outreach and research, you just want to make sure that your idea is going to be feasible. And like that falls on me. I'm fearful I might have set the bar a little bit too high on legislation. So like to be clear, like you do not need to be the expert, have a PhD in safe like drinking on campus or something like that to be doing initiative on that. Like you just want to make sure that you know the idea is feasible and that you're able to say, yes, I've attempted to contact people in the university about this, or I have contacted people in the university about this. I've looked online and I saw this happened at another college. I just don't want anybody to come up here and be like, oh, I want to get rid of ice cream at Russell House because it gave me a brain freeze today. Like that's not a great use of our time. But just make sure that you're actually outreaching. And I will always, always, always recommend, like, it is so easy to get feedback from your peers. Like, I know that it's kind of scary to do at first, like, especially if your friends aren't necessarily super involved on campus, but like people love to complain. So if you ask them for things that they want changed on campus, I promise you they have a list and they'll start bombarding your phone because now everybody seems to think that I can fix all campus problems and text me every time the Wi-Fi is down anywhere on campus. So just be sure to reach out to people. You want to make sure that you're understanding the idea as well. So that's just kind of the thought of like, if you realize there's a problem that needs to be fixed on campus, understanding the actual steps that can be taken to that. Like you can't just go 0 to 100, like you need to go 1 through 99 before you get there. I'm gonna skip by here. Sorry. So then these are just some legislating writing tips. I know a lot of people get freaked out by like their first time writing legislation. If you want to take a picture of this, I would. Otherwise, I would recommend honestly just going into the Google Drive and looking at pieces of legislation that have been passed in Senate in the past. I know I use that as a great template when I was writing legislation in my time in y'all's shoes. I would also recommend, again, please reach out to your committee chairpersons. Like, they'd love to talk to you about it. We talk about new legislation every single week at Rules. I'd be more than happy to help you. Like, if you feel confused, please reach out for help, and let's get your idea into works instead of just, like, deciding that it's not worth it or that it's too confusing. Because I promise you, you can figure it out. Y'all are smart. And then just to go over what happens after you submit legislation, it will get reviewed by Rules. If Rules sends it back to you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that they might have an idea about a way that the idea could be more feasibly implemented on our campus, or there just might be some like actual factual errors, which is totally fine, like that happens. Then once it comes to Senate, you see it gets read on the first reading calendar. If your bill doesn't get passed by acclamation, that doesn't mean that it's like a bad bill by any means. We've passed more bills by acclamation in this Senate session than we have ever, as far as I know, definitely in the time that I've been in student government. So like, please don't feel discouraged if your bill did not get passed by acclamation. That is totally okay, and that's kind of abnormal when it comes to like generic pieces of legislation. And then I would also recommend, if your legislation is going to committee, go to committee and talk about your legislation, because sometimes it's hard to understand when it's just words on a paper, but if you put a face to the name and you're explaining it, that's going to go a long way when you're talking with those committee members. Plus, if it has to do with something like an initiative, you might find some members in those committees that are also passionate about the same idea, and then y'all are able to like team up and work on the same thing together. It's also a good life skill to learn how to kind of promote the things that you want and argue for yourself. And then just some key ideas again. Number one, you are a representative of the student body always, so just make sure like you are actually reaching out and asking what people think, what people want, and just like hearing others' concerns around you. And I'm not joking, like people love to complain. It is so easy. So please, I recommend, like if y'all just texted one person today, you'd probably get a list of 15 things to get changed on our campus. I would also remain organized, just so when people get up here and you see we all ask great educated questions, it looks really awesome if you have things that you can be like, yeah, I saw on Kentucky's website that they do this at the University of Kentucky, like little things like that. Super easy to do. And then just also at the bottom, I want to emphasize there are constraints to Student Senate, and like that is totally okay. So you want to make sure that you're on that balance of like, you don't want to shoot too high, but there's a lot of things that are within y'all's power to do. I'd also recommend, we haven't had many bills. The codes, it's 180 pages of things that are just waiting to be edited and changed, and like y'all are the free thinkers, you're the ones who are able to change those, and like you have so much more power than I think most of y'all realize right now. So like I'd really recommend like go through the codes. Like if there's something you don't like suggest it as a change and see what Senate thinks of it. Like it's a lot easier than y'all think it is. Also, delegation chairpersons, you should have gotten an email and a GroupMe text, but please stay here afterwards. We're gonna have a quick meeting, and y'all should have already made text group chats with your delegation by now. But otherwise, that is all I have for you guys. Do you have any questions for me? All right. Seeing no more questions, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. Just go back to LSC right now.